Hey, quick heads up before we dive in. The Cowboys just made a sneaky signing that could matter more than most people expect. Malik Hooker goes down with an injury, and the team moved fast to bring back a familiar face to the practice squad, safety Julius Wood. You remember him from last year's preseason, the kid who flashed, picked off a couple passes, and had a few plays that made you think, man, he might actually stick. He didn't make the final 53 in 2024 because Tennessee claimed him off, waivers, and then he spent time on the Titans roster with only a handful of snaps. He also served a suspension last year and was recently reinstated, which made his path a little bumpier than most. Still, the Cowboys liked what they saw in camp and preseason, and now they've brought him back into an organization he already knows. That familiarity is bigger than it sounds. Why this move matters right now is simple: depth and speed of replacement. The safety room was already a place of questions. Juana Thomas looks like a promising starting free safety, Donovan Wilson handles the strong safety role and special teams, and Maris Bell and Elijah Clark give depth. But injuries change plans fast. Julius Wood has experience with the Cowboys' scheme from last year's camp. He had 2 interceptions in preseason play that got fans talking, including a tip drill pick and another that felt like a highlight. Those plays aren't just showboating, they signal awareness, ball skills, and the kind of instincts you can rely on in limited reps if a starter goes down. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Julius Wood fixes every defensive problem overnight. This is a sneaky, low-risk signing that potentially pays off in bursts. PFF's limited grading last year put him roughly in the middle among safeties who saw any action. Not elite, not a liability. His college body of work at Eastern Carolina shows production. Tackles, pass breakups, forced fumbles, and even a pick 6 in his collegiate years. That kind of playmaking background is exactly what teams hope translates into depth snaps and special teams value. Practically speaking, the Cowboys can elevate a practice squad player a limited number of times before they need to sign him to the active roster or move on. Given Hooker's injury designation, expect those elevations to come into play over the next few weeks, especially if Dallas wants to keep roster flexibility. So here's what I want from you right now. If you remember watching Wood in last year's preseason, type yes in the comments. If you didn't, type no. Hit that subscribe button. We're pushing to 16,000, and every new subscriber helps us cover moves like this in real time. And smash the like if you want more breakdowns like this. Tell me your thoughts below. Now that you know the move itself, let's take a step back and talk about who Julius Wood really is, because this isn't just another depth signing from nowhere. Cowboys fans who watched the 2024 preseason might remember how much buzz he generated back then. 2 interceptions in 3 games, one off a tip drill, and another snag against Stetson Bennett. Both smart, reactive plays that showed his awareness and instincts. He wasn't out there freelancing or chasing big plays. He was positioning himself correctly and letting the ball come to him. That's what made a lot of people, including some media outlets, predict he'd make the 53-man roster. But roster math in Dallas can be brutal, especially when you're stacked with veterans at safety and trying to squeeze in undrafted rookies at other positions. Tennessee scooped him up off waivers, and just like that, he was gone before the Cowboys could stash him on the practice squad. At Eastern Carolina, he was more than just a steady player. He was one of the most reliable defenders in that program's recent history. 87 total tackles in 2023, 41 solo, and a reputation for being physical around the box. He also produced turnovers. Multiple forced fumbles, 4 pass deflections in 2022, and 2 interceptions in back-to-back seasons, one of them going all the way for 6. That kind of production doesn't happen by accident. He's the type of player who reads quarterbacks well and closes quickly on the ball, even if he doesn't have elite speed. For context, PFF graded him in the mid-60s during his short stint with Tennessee. Not bad for a rookie who barely got any defensive snaps. And while that number doesn't tell the whole story, it does show he held his own when given a chance. What stands out most, though, is the way his game fits Dallas's defensive mindset. He's not afraid to tackle, and that's something Dan Quinn, and now the current defensive staff, has always valued in a depth safety. You want someone who can play fast, fill gaps in the run game, and still stay disciplined in coverage. Wood's style fits that description. He's a steady player, not flashy, and when you add in his past chemistry with the Cowboys locker room, it feels like a reunion that makes sense on multiple levels. Before we move on to how he fits into this year's safety depth chart, let me ask you something. When you look at a player like Wood, someone who shows flashes in the preseason, do you value that small sample game film, or do you trust college production more when judging potential? Drop your answer below, preseason or college tape. And while you're there, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're building a community of real Cowboys fans here, and you being part of that helps us bring these kinds of stories straight to you faster. Now let's talk about where Julius Wood actually fits in this defense, because context matters. The Cowboys' safety room is quietly one of the more interesting position groups on the roster. You've got Juana Thomas emerging as the starting free safety, Donovan Wilson handling most of the strong safety duties, and behind them, a mix of developing talent like Maris Bell and Elijah Clark. When you look at that list, you realize it's not just about replacing Malik Hooker's snaps. It's about maintaining balance between experience and youth. Wood adds a familiar face who already understands the playbook and knows the expectations. That matters more than most realize when you're trying to plug someone into a defense mid-season. Dallas has always valued versatility in its secondary, and Wood brings some of that. He's physical enough to play downhill and help in run support, but he's also comfortable dropping into coverage. He's not a pure center field type like Hooker, but in a rotational role or as a situational backup, he fits the mold perfectly. With Hooker on injured reserve, the Cowboys are allowed to elevate a practice squad player up to 3 times before having to sign him to the active roster. That's a key part of this strategy. It gives them flexibility. They can bring Wood up for specific matchups or special teams work without making a long-term commitment too soon. And if he performs, the team can always make a move to keep him around permanently. The underrated part here is the competition it creates. Elijah Clark, another undrafted safety, just got pulled up to the active roster. Maris Bell is fighting for rotational reps too. When you add Wood to that mix, it pushes everyone a little harder. That kind of competition usually brings out the best in younger players. It's also good insurance, because Dallas can't afford to be thin on the back end when the defense has already faced consistency issues this season. So let's make it simple. Do you trust Donovan Wilson as the Cowboys' long-term starter at strong safety? Drop a yes or no in the comments. I'm genuinely curious where fans stand on him right now, and if you're liking the depth we're building here, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next roster update we drop. So what can we actually expect from Julius Wood in the next few weeks? This is where things start to get interesting. With Malik Hooker on injured reserve, the Cowboys need someone who can fill the gaps both on special teams and in rotational defensive snaps. The smart money says Wood will get at least 1 or 2 elevations from the practice squad before Hooker returns. That's not speculation. That's just how Dallas has managed its depth under this system. You can elevate a player up to 3 times, and when a guy already knows your scheme and teammates, that makes him the easiest choice when you need quick help. In the short term, don't be surprised if Wood's first role comes on special teams. That's often the gateway for players in his situation. He's physical, he tackles well, and he's dependable in open space. All qualities that special teams coordinator John Fassel values. From there, the Cowboys could test him in limited defensive packages. Maybe some dime looks, maybe some sub-packages where he rotates in to give Wilson or Thomas a breather. It's not about throwing him into the fire. It's about keeping the defense steady while letting him earn trust rep by rep. And look, this kind of opportunity can turn into something bigger. We've seen it before. A player gets one shot, makes a play, and suddenly he's part of the rotation. Imagine the story of Julius Wood, the same guy who lit up preseason last year and got cut, comes back mid-season, gets elevated, and makes a key interception or a game-saving tackle. That's the kind of story fans remember. And in a year where the defense has been criticized for inconsistency, a spark from a hungry young player can shift the energy of the locker room. Over the next month, the Cowboys will watch closely. Hooker's recovery timeline suggests he'll be back soon, but the team's decision to bring back Wood instead of signing an outsider says a lot. They value continuity, chemistry, and trust, and Wood has already earned some of that. If he delivers even in limited snaps, he could carve out a small but meaningful role on this defense. Let's make it fun. Do you think Julius Wood will get called up to the active roster at least once while Hooker is out? Type yes if you believe he will, or no if you think he'll stay on the practice squad. I'll be checking the comments to see where fans stand on this one. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our follow-up when those roster moves start happening. When you zoom out and look at the big picture, this move feels exactly like what the Cowboys do best. Low risk, familiar face, potentially high reward. Julius Wood isn't coming in to steal a starting job right away, but he represents something the front office values: depth with upside. You're not spending much money, you're not risking a roster spot permanently, and yet you're adding a player who already knows the system, understands the locker room, and wants to be here. That combination of factors is rare, and it's the kind of smart, under-the-radar addition that can quietly help you through a long season. If we're being honest, the Cowboys' defense has needed to rediscover its identity this year. There's talent everywhere. Micah Parsons, Trevon Diggs working back from injury, a strong front seven, but injuries in the secondary have tested that depth. Moves like this show that the organization isn't panicking. They're trusting their process and betting on development. Bringing back a player like Wood signals confidence in their own scouting. It says, "We liked what we saw, and we believe he can still help us." You don't see that kind of continuity in every team. Of course, there's always a chance this doesn't turn into much. Maybe Hooker returns on schedule, and Wood never gets elevated. Maybe he fills a temporary gap and then moves on again. But that's the nature of the NFL. It's built on chances like this, and for a player who's already been through the system, left, and found his way back, the motivation is real. You can bet Julius Wood knows that if he gets even one shot, he has to make it count. And that's why this move feels sneaky good. The Cowboys didn't make headlines. They made a calculated bet on a guy who's already proven he can flash when given the chance. So I'll throw it back to you. If Julius Wood ends up playing well during his call-up, would you keep him on the roster once Malik Hooker returns? Drop your take in the comments. Just type yes or no. And before you go, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're pushing hard to hit 16,000 subscribers, and your support helps us keep breaking down every under-the-radar Cowboys move, just like this one. Thanks for watching, thanks for being part of this community, and I'll see you on the next update right here on Cowboys News TV.